head's getting filled with so much...
Hello and welcome to Prog Slog, where we go through 2000 AD week by week, issue by issue. I'm Michael.
And I'm Craig.
And today we are talking about Prog 2354. On the cover, we've got Feral and Foe, which we're talking about. We maybe wanted to see that.
I think we predicted this last week, didn't we? We wanted to see an Owlbear-based cover.
An Owlbore-based cover.
An Owlbore, I should say, yeah.
We do have that. It didn't read like that to me to begin with, because it's got like the eyes of the Owlbore, but it is there. It's just like a bit of a background element, so I thought it was just the you were saying the dark elfy one, Wraith Child, pictured like scratching her head a little bit.
Yeah,
but, it does say Owlbore Overload. That's the title.
Yeah, every title has every cover has like a little title or like a punny kind of like what's in the comic.
Can Wraith resist the Bird of Prey's powers?
I reckon.
And the cover is by Richard Elson. Of course it is, because it's Feral and Foe. Yeah. Do you like it?
I like it. It's a little bit like, I don't know, I feel like her pose, like she's meant to be like, oh no, my head's getting filled with so much information, but like, I don't know, it sort of looks like he's not necessarily traced, but like referenced like a sensual dancer. Like there's something not quite right about it for like the...
I sort of see what you mean. Is there not like a comic book artist who's notorious for tracing porn?
I am not.
It's not that.
I feel bad talking about Greg Land in the same sentence as Richard Elson. So like, it's not going to go that badly. I don't think.
No,
I don't think it's definitely not that. It's just that sort of the vibes that the character's giving off, and I question it. I question it slightly.
Well, fair enough. I think it's fine. It's not as bombastic as I was expecting from a cover from Feral and Foe.
Yeah.
But, you know, it does basically what we were asking for. So
we literally like a week ago we were like, give them the cover.
Yeah.
They deserve the cover.
And speaking of, like, I guess we're skipping well ahead here, because like we normally talk about this right at the end.
We're freeform here.
But in terms of like, does this deserve to get the cover? I was having thoughts about that.
Well, I guess we will circle back to that, because like they deserved it last week.
Yeah.
Maybe different this week. We'll see.
Yeah. Well,
keep listening, listeners.
Let's just turn to the Nerve Center.
So you said the Nerd Center there, and that is also...
Did I say the Nerd Center?
You said the Nerve Center, but like I heard Nerd Center, and I was like, yeah, that is accurate.
I mean, the whole comic is kind of the Nerd Center.
Just rampant nerd work.
Or we're the Nerd Center.
We are the center of nerd... Hopefully, one day we can be like the absolute core of nerd culture.
The Sloggers Nerd Center.
Yeah.
In the Nerve Center, we've got Tharg, who is saying pretty much nothing this time.
Nothing this time.
He's still filling those like page inches, though. Like, fair play to whoever has to write
if
Tharg's
I come
bit.
off as like criticising Tharg for like his little box every week, I hope I don't, because he is filling that fucking box with like Tharg speak constant. I think like when I read it, I'm like, does he have like a spreadsheet of like the amount of times he like, because some like I feel like there's overlap in how he describes himself a lot of the time.
Yeah,
where he's like, I'm the mighty godhead, or like I feel like he's like, oh, I used that in like week 4 of this month, so I should probably like hold off until like week 3 of the 2 months from now to do it.
He has it on rotation. Yeah.
Because there's only so much like Tharg stuff he can say.
But what the Tharg stuff he's saying is that we've got the comics that we have in this prog. It's Judge Dredd, it's Helium, it's Devil's Railroad, it's Fall Deadworld, and it's Feral and Foe. And also that there's a new magazine out. How regularly does the magazine come out?
Once a month.
Right, so that is sort of something worth bringing up.
It's definitely good that they're cross-promoting it.
Yeah.
Like, I can see a world where they just don't mention it and like it falls by the wayside, but like he's like, you've bought this fucking comic. Please go
buy the other comic.
We published 2 of these things.
Yeah.
Like, and I know you're like, oh, I just want 2000 AD, I don't want to like buy an extra thing. He's like, or not you specifically, but like you, the listener, might be like, I'm only buying one thing. There's Tharg telling you that there's a second publication with the same writers and artists, basically, the same creative teams doing other things.
Yeah, and I'm sure some of it is good, but there is a reason why I'm doing this podcast about 2000 AD and not Dredd magazine.
Not Nick. Both times you've got it, or like the last time you got it, you weren't very impressed, and then...
I mean, it's not that it was a bad product, it's just that it wasn't what I was expecting.
Yeah. This time, it's back to being like regularly scheduled programs now. It's got a standalone Dredd story. And I should reveal that I bought it this month. I think I'm on for just buying it. I'm toying around with doing a solo thing where like I cover the magazine just to be like, you know, complete in our coverage of
a secondary episode, Craig's report from the...
Here's my 4-hour rambles. Like, I mean, I've not read it yet, but like we both read that last one and it did promise Hitler.
Well, true.
And
they are saying that it is the end of Johnny Red.
Yeah.
In fact, are they saying? Because I think I said, did I not say that I would be up for this being the second last ever comic if the last one is just like uninterrupted him beating the shit out of Hitler?
Just a fist fight between Johnny Red and Hitler.
Because Tharg does go through the stories that are in the magazine. I
think he says it's the latest installment of it.
So. Latest installment of Spectre, Lawless, Johnny Red. Yeah,
Johnny Red's one of those comics that's a reprint, though. So I don't know how many issues his actual series got, and I don't know what issue he's at. But I would agree with you if it is the second last.
We also have the damage report, as always. You can look for the damage report in the bottom left-hand side of the front page of 2000 AD, and it's hidden in the text of all the legal stuff, and this time it's kind of potentially developing into what you were saying it might do with the fireball in Oxford, because it does talk about how one of the script droids has gotten so angry at having to pretend to be positive the whole time that it's popped.
I mean, I'm like you. You know, you're always like, I like that when something happens. I like that something has happened in this story. Like this damage report. Like, there's at least an mech that's exploded.
Yeah.
So.
And also, there's a bit where, like, they're saying that the writer droids are really... They don't like it when you discuss any script points with them. So, like, I don't know if that's like a little slide, like,
well, that's just writers,
somebody.
Isn't it? That's just like... You won't, like, you're working for, like, a company and you don't want to be told that your stories are shite.
Well, maybe. But so we've got a new feature. First time since we started this podcast, there is a Droid Life. And Droid Life is something that sometimes appears on the first page, and it's a little 4-panel gag comic. With 2 characters, one of whom I can see the name of because it's written on his shirt. He's P14. But there's like a little kind of Laurel and Hardy 2 comedy robots.
They're like a double act of little... They are creator droids. Yeah. Like, they are droids that work for 2000 AD, and this is meant to be like the kayfabe. Like, this is like a not only is Damage Report like a sort of text prose window into it, this is what's apparently happening in the command module. Did you like this comic?
It was fine. Most of it is a fictional ABC Warriors comic that one of the 2 comedy droids has made. And the joke seems to be that in one of the panels, all of the speech bubbles have changed into, like, one of them looks like a pig, one of them's a teacup, one of them's Pac-Man, and the punchline is the other one saying, I thought you were just doing the script, I didn't realise you were doing the lettering now as well.
Yeah,
so
he's multi-talented. I mean, I'll take from this, like, from my own sort of creative stuff, like, you can turn speech bubbles into anything, and it probably would help if they're relevant to what's going on. Like, that could be like a fun technique to use. Like, in this, he's like, one's a teacup, one's a Pac-Man. There's like a snake as well.
Yep.
Like, so like, it's all dumb things.
This Droid Life is done by Cat Sullivan, and I think that it's always Cat Sullivan. I think that's Cat Sullivan's gig. Is Cat Sullivan a letterer? Is this it's not as easy as all that?
I don't know. I just really appreciate that I understood and got this Droid Life, because there's some Droid Lives where I have to read them multiple times to see where the joke is. Not to be criticised, but like there's sometimes I read it and I'm like, I don't see where the punchline or the gag is. It's just sort of a series. Recently they've been quite good, but like there has been ones where I'm like, I don't get this. But even when I don't get it, I'm just glad that there's more content in the comic. Like, see if like they did a whole page of just like gag strip stuff. See if like the last page of the comic. You know, sometimes they do the letters page. See, instead of doing that, if they just did like a page of these, I'd be really happy.
Like short gag comics. Yeah,
like the more content you can squeeze into 2CAD makes me happy, really.
I'm wondering what normally fills up that page. I think it's like adverts.
And sometimes they have. It depends, because like sometimes they make a comic longer or shorter. Like to make like page turns work or make like get the content in there because they need to like rush for like how like sometimes it'll be a regen the next issue and they want to get like a big cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Like it's a sort of management thing. So like I guess you would call like the letters page filler sometimes. You would
probably would. Yeah, I never really read it.
But
Did last time.
But see if there's a magazine. See if there's a comic. I should say a 2CAD with like damage report, a droid life, a letters page, and then sometimes they'll use the last page of the comic instead of giving an ad. Peak comic for me. That's like, oh, you've put as much in as you could possibly squeeze into this comic. My head's getting filled with so much.
First in the comic, we've got Judge Dredd Poison Part 4. Script by Rob Williams, art by PJ Holden, colours by Peter Doherty, and letters by Simon Boland. So we open back in East Meg 2.
Oh, East Meg 2.
Not Mega City, East Meg. And the Judge Domino, who's the spy, is at gunpoint from a bunch of East Meg judges. But she talks her way out of it.
Kind of.
She and also she's holding up the picture of the guy who you couldn't remember that she had a picture of.
They keep saying his name in this, and I'm like, who are they talking about?
Well, he not only has a people name, but I think he's got like a Russian name, so it's harder for me to internalize as well. But so she says, what is this about? Like, what will it take to get me out of this?
Yeah, it's like a bargaining thing.
Yeah.
Like.
And the guy actually has an answer. I thought that was going to be like, what's it going to take to get me out of this? Well, nothing. I am where I want to be, capitalist scum. But
well, I mean, last week he revealed himself as a capitalist now, so like he is doing some he's negotiating and like getting what he wants out of the judges.
I don't know if he revealed himself to be a capitalist.
Well,
he made a comment about capitalism.
We talked about that last time, where like how everyone's a capitalist now because like. Whatever the situation in the world is, like East Meg fell and things like that.
But anyway, what he's actually after, I think, because of something that they say later on, is to be not only extracted from East Meg, from the Soviets, but also to not be a part of Mega City 1 either. Because they say something a bit like, because like, they talk around it.
They do talk around, because at one point he's like, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, I don't know if I do know what you're saying,
I didn't
guy.
really either. But later on, they're like, oh, what's justifying a new state between friends sort of thing. So that's kind of what I took from it.
I mean, if he wants to set up that new state on, like, an offshore oil platform, I'll be entirely there for that.
Yeah. So they come to whatever the agreement actually is, without really saying it out loud. And then the East Meg judges lower their weapons, and she's like, oh, they take orders from you? And this is where he's like, yes, they do, because... we're all very, like, not into the Sov state, actually.
We've been Sovs for so long, but, like, we don't want to be, like, under their thumb anymore, and...
Yeah.
It might be meaningful stuff. Like, it might be big geopolitical things for the Dredd world.
Well, it seems very, like, 80s spy movie. It seems very Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy to me.
The bit that I took from it was he had a whole thing about how, like, we were promised nothing. Like, that, the main sort of...
That was a good line.
It was a good line, but, like,
he was saying, before the judges came, your people were promised liberty and freedom. But you know what my people were promised? Nothing. Like,
it's a good line for us to read, but, like I was putting myself in, like, Domino's shoes, and it's like, I don't know that. Like, I'm, like, 20, 30 something. Like, I have only known the terror of, like, the Mega City 1. Like, what do you mean freedom? Like, what do you fucking mean? That really got to me, because I was like, I get what you're saying, comic. Like, you're doing good Russia-America stuff, but, like, America doesn't exist. Like,
and it hasn't for
hundreds of years. Yeah. Like, it has only been the judges. It's like, okay, before the judges, 100 and whatever years ago, multiple apocalypses ago.
That is an interesting point that I hadn't really fully considered.
Like, I have, like, no concept of freedom. Like,
but anyway, they come to whatever conclusion they come to, and she goes back to Judge Dredd, and it says, like, you actually look angry that you don't have to shoot anybody.
Yeah, I'm angry they didn't shoot anybody, because there's no good Dredd action in this, really.
I should say that she does get the information on the guy. I should probably remind myself of what the information actually is.
Guy name.
Cervantes went rogue some years ago. He's no ideologue, he's another mercenary. He is not in East Meg 2 any longer. But I can give you the address of a safe house, so they haven't really found him, they just know a place to look.
She gets, like, a dossier. Like, there's, like, a little booklet that she gets off them, and, like, Dredd's like, oh, what did this cost us? And...
Well, I think this scene is her going to the safe house, where he appears to have a cushion on his sofa that looks like a Brussels sprout.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Is what?
Yeah.
Did that mean anything to you? Look at that.
And she collects a dossier. Ah, yes, I remember what I thought about this, because she hands it over to Judge Dredd, and Judge Dredd looks at it, and Judge Dredd's internal monologue is basically, I can't read Sov.
Yeah.
This doesn't mean anything to me.
I can't read Sov, but it's even deeper than that, because he can't read, like, administrator or, like, bureaucratic. He's just like, oh, he's like a Klingon.
Well, he's like a Klingon, but like his whole internal monologue is like this isn't my world. My world is like doing the beat on the streets.
Yeah, like
doing justice to people's faces.
If I could day or night stick this, I'd be into it. But no.
And finally, like we read a few things that are like spelled out on the thing. We see Hondo City, which is the Japan equivalent. We've got a name Hayashi, and then like a few other names, which I assume are supposed to mean something to us. The last one being PJ Maybe.
PJ Maybe. So
which rings a bell.
So it rang a bell, and obviously, like this last page, it's like 4 or 5 panels, and the biggest one is this just panel that says PJ Maybe.
Yeah,
and it's meant to be a big like dun dun dun. Did he kill, or did they?
Did PJ Maybe kill Hershey?
Yeah. I remember the name.
Yep.
Don't know the character. I had to look it up. I looked it up for this recording so we could talk about it.
I meant to and I didn't.
PJ Maybe is like a serial killer. And,
yes.
And like has been a serial killer since like age 12 or whatever. Is a Dredd villain.
Yeah.
Like a named Dredd villain, a recurring character. I don't know if they're meant.
It's like Batman has uncovered the name of like the Riddler in this.
Yeah, like it's like, oh, like, and again, I don't care. Like, do you care? Do you care that it's like a named person that's potentially killed? Because this was my fear at the start, right? I was saying like I don't need this story to be about like how a named Dredd character did a scheme to kill Hershey. I feel like that's like a fine, because I keep saying it's a fine thing for this comic to be about, but that's not what the Hershey comic was about. Like
no,
and like Hershey's death is like she dies in an alleyway. She's like a fascist, like she's king fascist, and like she's fallen from grace of fascism, and she just dies unmourned in an alleyway. That's the thrust of that story. And I know as like listeners, as readers, we're meant to be sad that like our beloved character died, but her character is fascism.
Now that you've reminded me a little bit about PJ, maybe I think that I actually have read an older story or a newer story, a recent one that had PJ maybe in it.
Older than this.
I think there was a whole thing about how he'd gotten away before and changed his face.
But you can do that. That's definitely a thing.
Yeah, but
it's mentioned in this arc.
Like, so no one knows who he is because he's constantly like changing his face and stuff like that. It is a bit odd that they've gone after Hershey. One of the things that I thought was a point to bring up in this comic was that the Domino asks the Sov informant at one point, was it the Sovs that killed Hershey? Because that's the main theory going in.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, Hershey was an ex-chief judge, so why would we do that?
Revenge?
Yeah, well, possibly revenge, but it also wasn't the chief judge that had done the Apocalypse War or anything.
No, but like she is an chief judge and would have information. Like you'd want to like capture her and like torture her for information. You like it's not just like, oh, she's not a chief judge anymore. We'll just she's nothing to us now. Like I that line was like, well, you'd probably want to like kill her for any of the various things she's done, because she might have not been responsible. She wasn't the chief judge during the Apocalypse War.
Yeah,
but she had been the chief judge for many years, presumably when there was East Meg stories happening. That like she had a hand in foiling their plans.
Potentially, but I thought it was a good point because I was unsure whether or not Hershey had been chief judge when Hershey contracted this pathogen. Right. And so I think that's them establishing, like, well, no, she wasn't chief judge, so why would anybody bother? Also, I guess the reason why anybody would bother is because they're just a serial killer, and maybe are doing it for the clout of killing the
chief judge.
Yeah.
Where this falls, right? My guess is this is like a red herring thing, because it's like, oh, it's name you know, and then like it won't actually be name you know. Maybe that's just me being hopeful, because I don't want it to be name you know, because I don't feel like that's what the death of Hershey was about. That feels like a retroactive, like, yeah, the death of Hershey meant so much because like it not only was its own story, it had all this fallout, and it turned out to be named character that did it, and like named character, and it's like, well, actually no. I don't know named character because I've only been reading for like 3 years, whatever.
Also, they just don't seem like that interesting of a character from what I remember.
I mean, like, give them points if they're a Dredd villain that's survived, like, stories with Dredd. Because that doesn't happen. Yeah. Like, you will get shot by Dredd eventually.
But I think Dredd just wasn't able to track down PJ, maybe.
I think it's meant to be like a big, like, page turn reveal and like, oh my goodness, but like, as the control group for 2018 that we are.
Once again, we are filthy casual.
Filthy casuals, but like...
Like, we know 2000 AD, but not all that well.
No, like, we've only been reading, like, week to week for, like, 2-3 years, like, since the pandemic, basically, and we've read on and off since then.
Before then.
Yeah, before then, I should say. But, I don't know what this would be. Like, see if this was, like, Gorilla Man from the moon, or, like, you know how the crocodiles live on the moon.
The Clegs.
See if it was something funny like that, I'd maybe be more interested. But it's like, oh, I was named Guy, and, like, I don't care. And I'm maybe not coming at it from the best sort of viewpoint of, like, I don't need this story to exist and to continue being happening. I'm not even being very negative. I'm not even being very served by the world hopping aspect of it, because they went to the Solves. They went to East Meg 2 for 2 issues, 2 progs, and did nothing. They went to a room, and she made like a crack about how, like, oh, like, is the East Meg's world being run from this, like, shitty, like, hotel room or whatever? And he's like, well, we both know, like, states are sold in these rooms all the time, kind of thing.
That was like, I don't know if you've seen a lot of, like, 1980s spy stuff.
I think it is doing good 80s spy stuff. Yeah. It's like, I just want to see dumb Dreadworld stuff. Like, show me, like, what this city looks like, what weird, because, like, Mega City 1's, like, amazing, weird, like, techno, sort of, like, dystopia thing.
There's a lot of gimmicks that you can draw.
A lot of gimmicks. I want to see that, but with, like, Russian hats on. You know?
What would that even be, though? Like, just everybody playing chess?
Like a bear.
Okay.
But like a cyborg bear.
Okay.
That's as far as I'd go with that. But, like, you know how you know bears? You know how, like, bears on show, like, that kind of, like, horrible sideshow stuff? Mm-hmm. That, but it's future somehow. I'm not saying my ideas are better. I'm just saying I'm not necessarily, like, vibing with all this.
Weirdly, the only things that I can think of that are, like, explicitly Russian stereotypes that I know of are, like, everybody plays chess and everybody reads books. And I don't think those are flashy enough to be...
You could do that if that was, like, a cyborg bear reading a book, playing chess at the same time. I'm not asking for it to be a scene, just put him in the background. This could be taking place in Mega City 1 if it wasn't for those establishing shots of those, like, whatever the Russian architecture is called, with the spires and the bulbous buildings.
I will agree with you on the slightly downer energy here, that I didn't actually like this particular part of the story as much as I have liked previous ones. I think that I will continue to say I think it's fine that we've got an investigation story here, but I think it was a lot of this particular part of the story was based on the shock reveal of, oh, it's PJ maybe!
Yeah.
And for me, that was turning the page and being like, it's... Who?
Someone.
I think I know that name.
Yeah.
So,
control group. You know, this is for long-term fans. Yeah. It's like a reward. It's like, oh, you remember this thing, but
it slightly fell flat.
That, and also there's not much actual Dredd content in it. I mean, like, to be fair,
Dredd is not the main character of this strip or the last.
There's no reason for him to not be as well. Like, I'm not being like.
I still think it would be a lot funnier if Dredd had just taken his helmet off, and that was why no one knew who he was.
Like, even then, like, even just doing, like, a face change, because he was like, I want you to do the face change, and go, well, do it. Like, it's your strip. Like, go and be the main... Because, like, I feel like Judge Dredd strips, no matter what they are in, like, they're better when Dredd is involved in the story, and, like...
See if, like, the thing was, like, Dredd had taken his helmet off so no one would recognise him, but he was wearing that one hat that Russians wear and stuff, with the ear flaps, and he'd, like, had it pulled down so low that you still couldn't see his face. That would be hilarious.
Like, and, like, you know, the shadow on his eyes, like, perfect. Absolutely perfect. But, like, we were talking last time about, like, is this, like, a Hershey clone? Like, you're calling her Judge Domino, and I'm like, I'm still not clear that she's a judge, but, I mean, I guess she must, but...
Most characters that are important in this setting are judges.
Absolutely, and, like, why would they have someone working for them that isn't a judge? But it was just, like...
You're right, she doesn't have a great big badge.
It's great. I mean, she's a spy, and she's undercover, and I get it. She's thinking in Saw. I like that.
She might not be a judge, though. You are right. I don't know that for sure.
It's just very... It's a long time away from Dredd beating people up, which I don't think every Dredd strip should be, but the further you're away from that, it's like, oh, I'm getting a bit kind of shaky here on this whole premise.
I will probably be ranking this Dredd lower than I have been.
Ooh, I am very excited. We do the rankings at the end, everyone. Very excited to see if Deadworld climbs any further. Now we know it's like there's potential for it. Because I wasn't going to bring it up until we got to the strip, but now that your normal number one is going lower, there's potential. My head's getting filled with so much fascism.
Next, we have Helium, Scorched Earth Part 4. Let's see, where's the credits? So, the script is by Ian Edgington, art by Disraeli, and letters by Simon Boland. I've got a very particular thing to bring up here, because there's something that I should have noticed, that I noticed in this issue that I hadn't before.
Okay.
So, we open on a meeting of, like, the Council of High Ministers or something in the high city of the... Well, I say the high city. It's literally a high city. It's one of the cities that are above the cloud line.
Yeah.
So they're above the poisonous gas that envelops the world.
They're above it, but also in it, because that's the point of this strip.
Yes. I suppose I might have misremembered that, and they might not be above it, because they're saying that the poisonous gas, the fugue, I think they call it, is wearing away at the foundations. But the thing which I wanted to say that I realised that I shouldn't have is that the main guy who calling like the Master.
He looks like the Master.
He looks like the Master.
He's kind of got an afro.
They make a point of calling him Doctor here. Doctor... Oh, it doesn't really matter what his actual name is. That made me realise he is the guy that machine guns the royal family in the first issue of this whole thing.
I was going to ask about that, because there's a panel where he's like, we've all bloodied our hands for the revolution, and I was like staring at him, I was like, because like I was staring at his hands, I was staring at the panel, I was like placing an Uzi in those hands, like I was dragging and dropping it into his hands, being like, that's great. I'm glad that he did well for himself.
Well, I mean, I guess it would be pretty easy to convert the clout of murdering the Tsar, the Tsarina, and most of the children to being like seemingly the Stalin of this. But this also confirms that there was a Tsar of Britain. Because we're still in Britain, and
I have been asking about that for multiple issues now. So like, I'll concede that there does seem to have been a Tsar of Britain, even though like the story seemed to be the Tsar of Britain because it was like the children. It was like the Anastasia sort of plot.
The exact, well, not the exact, but a very similar sequence of events to what happened during the Russian Revolution.
It's unclear, and we could have cleared it up by reading Helium when it was free.
I'm not sure that in the Russian Revolution, the royal family was killed by their children's teacher.
With an Uzi. See, this is the thing, because like, he's like a minister guy, and I just run through the thoughts of like, I want to do like a press conference with him and be like, so where did you conceal that? Just full Uzi. Like, it was bigger than your hands. Like, it wasn't like was it in your teaching deck? Because you just pulled it. It was just like one smooth motion. Like
one panel, there was no gun. Next panel, there was a gun.
It was like, incredible content. This is like mostly a sort of conversation, and there's definitely stuff I want to talk in this comic when we get to it. But like, I really enjoyed this chat between these ministers, because they're all sort of comedy evil guys.
They're comedy evil guys, and they're also like bickering between each other, because like the guy is telling us basically that the first guy is telling us that the fugue is going to break down the structural integrity of the city that they live in, and everybody's going to die within 20 years. Much like, you might draw a parallel with climate change there.
Climate change.
And then the next minister...
I was drawn...
And then the next minister is like, oh, here we go. The minister for architecture is telling us that we need to spend more money on architecture. I'm sure that's real and not something that you're making up to suit your own benefits.
I drew a lot of parallels here, and stop me if I'm just wildly wrong, with like COVID and stuff.
Yeah.
Because he was like, well, we need to deal with it. Like, it's eating away at us right now. And they all felt like sort of like this is the Tory cabinet. Like, they're ministers, like they are the Tories, but like they're like, oh, like I'm sure it'll be fine. We'll see how it goes. Like, we've got 20 years until like this entire city collapses and we all die of noxious poisonous gases.
Yeah. What we also learn here, which is probably more reminding us, is that the main guy, Doctor whatever his name is, wish I'd bothered to look at it before I started recording.
Dr. Masterson.
No, it's not Dr. Masterson. It's
well, he's both a doctor and looks like the Master. He's a very complicated character, I would say. Like, see, from these 4, whatever issue we're on now.
This is part 4.
Part 4. So we know that he murdered children, which is bit of a downer, bit of a neg for his character. But in this, like, they're bickering and being like full Tories in view of like the help. there's some great panels of like people waiting on them and giving them tea and stuff, whilst they're like very jowlishly being like, well, you know, the help, they should know their place kind of thing. And he's like, come on, gentlemen, like, let's not be like dicks whilst they can literally hear us and go tell the people.
Yeah, he says walls of ears, like he because the guy says like, oh, the poors are at it again.
He literally says, like, why don't we shoot the poors?
It's not why don't we shoot the poors. It's like the workers are complaining, you know, like workers do.
I'm pretty sure there's a panel in there where he says, let's shoot the workers.
And then the main villain says, I think you mean our revolutionary brethren.
Yeah.
Actually, and then sends everybody away, and he's like, be careful, mate. Walls of ears.
Like, we're obviously comedically evil, but like, be good at this.
Don't let the proletariat hear you, the revolutionary government, talking about how you don't respect the workers.
So like it was like a 3-step process of like, kill children, and then was like, evil, but like competently evil. He's like don't let them hear. And then he's got a big tirade about how like, no, you're just like, you're becoming like the Tsar, like we are the revolutionary government, and we should be like he's weirdly complicated for a man who I first saw bringing an Uzi on to children. So I like him. Like, and also look at his hair. Like it's kind of like a very small afro. I don't know if that's the intention, but like the way it cups his head.
It could be African hair. He's got very light skin.
I don't know if it's meant to be like that, but like it's what it puts in mind for me. It might just be 70s hair in general, because like he is very like 70s The Master, and the Master didn't have an afro, but like maybe it's like a sort of 70s hairdo type of thing that I don't think politicians had in the 70s, but I could see it being a thing.
It could just be the way that Disraeli draws.
Yeah, that type of hair.
Yeah. After this scene... Oh, sorry, no, we're not finished with this scene, because as I was going to say before, we also learn, or are probably more reminded, that the data that he's trying to get back is some like new research that has apparently got the potential to clean up all of the air all across the world. So that's why he's after them. He wants to get rid of the fugue so that they're not just trapped in this tiny little bubble city.
But like the data is on some not porn discs with the heroes. I don't want to move on from this just yet, because there's an amazing 2-panel bit where like the architecture minister, or the guy who was like bringing the concerns to the council, was like, can we see the new formula to like... And the Master's like, no. And it's just 1-for-1 steamed hams. Like, I know that's just like, it's just a conversation. Someone's just asking to see a thing. But it was like the panel layout of like, the thing you're talking about. Can we see it?
And he's like, no. And they're like,
no.
Oh, why? Because, and like I'm inserting my own beat panel. Yeah, it does feel like there should be.
There's no beat panel, but it feels like a beat panel, and
because his location is being kept secret for security purposes.
And then like cut away.
Presumably, the scientist that the heroes are with is that scientist.
Yeah.
So cut away to them on the land train with the Sloggers.
Oh, I've got a lot to say about the Sloggers.
Well, I thought you might, because disappointingly, we are being told by the heroes here that what the Sloggers are is monarchists.
That was the big build-up, because there's a bit where he's saying they're like malcontents.
Makes sense, because of course the main character is secretly the princess. So the Sloggers will, when this was revealed, presumably be aligned with her and provide aid to the hero's side.
I had high hopes for the Sloggers. You know, I wanted to turn this into a Slogger-based podcast where we're slogging all the time. But now we find out, because like there's like, it's like a 3 build-up thing where he's like, they're malcontents, there's something else, they're monarchists! Like, it's a really good like bit of dialogue, and like that being the... I guess in this world where they've killed all of the czars that ruled everywhere, that makes a lot of sense. But like, I really like that was the third thing, the thing that's like, oh no, you can't trust them, especially because they're monarchists.
Well, this is a post-revolutionary society that this scientist has come from, so presumably that's, the big difference.
It's just really funny to me. Really sad that they're monarchists and have a land train. I didn't think anybody who could be a monarchist or would be monarchistly inclined would be also into land trains, but here we are. Do you have anything else to say about the Sloggers, other than that you're incredibly disappointed with them?
I wouldn't necessarily say I'm incredibly disappointed.
Heartbroken? Maybe I'm projecting that.
I think you're feeling particularly betrayed yourself, because
it was such a high. It was such a high last issue, and then like the first time we see them again,
at the risk of putting off a certain section of the fan base potential, Craig and I are monarchists.
Please write in if you're a monarchist that's been reading Toucan for the last 2,000 issues, because I'd love to hear from you.
Please write in and tell me what the appeal of the monarchy is, because I just don't care about them, and they're all over the news all the... Anyway.
You're getting... Your blood's up.
I'm getting too into it. We follow the Sloggers and the heroes on their land train into another bubble city that they've got within the Fugue. So either the main city was just a bubble city, or the Sloggers have just adapted better to this world than...
Well, they've got a land train. You can't adapt better than having a land train.
Well, they do just seem to be able to move around the Cursed Earth equivalent much more than it seems like anybody else thought possible.
The first 3 parts of this were building up how you don't go into the Cursed Earth, because like there's wildebeests there.
Then they get to a city. It looks like I'm supposed to recognise it because there's like a big clock building, which could be like a particular train station or something.
It's just sort of Victorian architecture, isn't it? Though?
But they get let off or forced off the train. The heroes, their hands are tied up. And we get a reveal at the end that there's like a great big yellow eye in the sky, which is presumably what is keeping the Fugue out of this city.
Well, it seems that the bubble in this bubble city is a big eye creature that's like staring down at them.
It's quite eldritch. It's quite Lovecraftian looking.
Yeah. Well, they get out of the train and like one of the Sloggers is like,
it's like the eye is the sun, because there's like a yellow light over everything in this place.
Well, it's like a build up, because they get out and then like, oh well, this seems lovely. Actually, they don't seem like cannibals, because they're mentioned that they're cannibals.
They did say that they're cannibals.
It's fun that I'm like, oh yeah, cannibals, that's whatever. But monarchists. But like they don't seem like cannibals. They've got like train stations and flags and whatnot. And then like they look up and there's just an eldritch like creature staring down at them that they presumably worship. Seems like it'll go in that direction. Yeah.
I don't know if they'll necessarily worship it. We'll see in future installments.
I get that sort of vibe. I mean, it's like a huge all-seeing eye that stares down at them. They might be like a big brother society.
I think that it's more likely that what will happen is that once the Sloggers became Sloggers, once they split off and just went out into the wilds to die, they found that they could live in a more symbiotic state than the people that like the society that we think is the only society at the start of the story are able to, and so they will have had this symbiotic relationship with this big yellow eye monster defending their city from the Fugue in a similar fashion to the Iron Dome. And the villains, I guess.
I think that this is my prediction, because I like to do predictions for scripts. They will sacrifice at least 2 children to this thing every year. It'll be one of those things where it's like, oh, this is like, it's not that big it's not that bad a big giant eyeball that looks at you all the time, and then like it'll be quietly revealed that they chuck a couple of children into it every so often to appease its wrath.
That's a Star Trek plot.
It's a Star Trek plot, isn't it? And like they've come to a place, like they're on a journey from one place to another, and they've discovered this like society of people that we thought were bad, but might not be.
I will bet you 20p that it doesn't go that way. And my prediction will be that the Sloggers are proven to be right, because the hero is the princess, and it'll be like a chosen destiny kind of thing, or not chosen destiny, chosen one of destiny kind of thing, where the people that have gone out to the wilderness and had to survive in the rough climbs are the ones that are actually right about, like, living with nature, or mutant nature in this case.
Yeah, like it'll be like, oh, not all the creatures of like the Fugue are bad.
Yeah.
Right?
But they did kill that pig.
They did kill that pig, which is a shame.
Yeah.
Controversial, like mixed up sort of like, complicated people, the Sloggers. I think you're making all very valid and worthwhile points there, but I do think there'll be some child sacrifice involved. Like, you'll still get that 20p off me if like they have to sacrifice an adult, because that's not the same fight. But like, I am mad, because look at this, like it's the sun. Like, how is it not a sun god type, like...
It definitely could be. You might be winning this bet.
I don't want to think bad of the Sloggers, but they are monarchists. Like, they are capable of literally anything.
Well, did you like this part of the story?
I did. I really liked the meeting. And, like, we've talked many times about how, like, if it's just a conversation, you can...
This is probably the most just a conversation that we've seen from Helium, but I thought it was a good conversation.
It was a good conversation?
And it made me realise a bit more about the setting and what was going on.
It had setting, it had plot, it had character, because it was, like, Dr. Masterson, we'll learn his name eventually, was like, calm down, stop jowling everywhere. They can literally hear you saying, we're going to shoot the poor.
Yeah.
And then he did have like a tirade against them for being like they were revolutionaries and now they're dicks. Like we need to sort.
Yeah. There was a whole bit about like how are we any better than the regime that we overthrew?
Yeah,
because we're doing the exact same.
He's a
things.
very like unless like he's like completely comedically evil in the first part.
Yeah,
we don't know, but he shouted at Phyllis. That was our introduction to him. He was like, "I'm going to disappear you, little villain, if you don't do what I say." And then he shouted at Phyllis.
I was just about to bring up the Phyllis exchange because like I think that's definitely the most characterful thing I've seen of any villain in 2000 AD, certainly.
Yeah.
Where he just did every villain that you've ever written does this thing where they shout at their subordinates. I've never seen one like collect themselves and be like, I'm so sorry about that. That was entirely uncalled for.
Shouted, collected, Phyllis left, really scared, and then he was like, fuck. I shouted at Phyllis. Like, people try to do this character a lot, like you're saying, that's every villain ever. Like, and they try to make like a sympathetic villain. And like a lot of the time when they try to do a sympathetic villain, I know I'm very much like, fuck off. I know you think you're writing a sympathetic villain, but you're not. He might not be sympathetic, but he's very like characterful. Like there's a lot of like
if this was a real person, I'd still say maybe go to jail for shooting everybody. But
go to jail, but also like that fuck. See when he was like, see when he was genuinely beating himself up that he shouted at Phyllis. That's great writing. And like great art to come, like that beat panel of like him just actually being upset that he lost it at Phyllis, incredible. And then he continues to sort of be that sort of character that has multiple things, and I think that the comic benefits a lot from it.
He is genuinely written quite nuanced, yeah.
And now we remember he killed those children. So like anything we've just said, maybe
it's that same guy.
He had that Uzi.
Yeah,
what a character.
And I think that's all I've got for Helium.
I really like Helium.
Yeah, I like it as well. I liked it before, 8 years ago.
Why don't we shoot the poors?
Third comic is The Devil's Railroad Part 3. No subtitle for this because I guess it's the first time
it's run.
Script by Peter Milligan, art by Rufus Dayglow, colours by Jose Villarrubia.
Did you do that last time?
Well, I stumbled over it last time as well, yeah. And letters by Jim Campbell. We open on the scene of that gangster guy, people trafficker, being dead because Palamon, the main character, had killed him. And they're all, standing there being a bit worried about that while the caption boxes talk about how screwed they are. This is.
I was wanting to get to this page with you.
Devil's Railroad always seems to throw something because, I think actually, I've listened back to our recordings in the past. I think I've actually been too down on it overall, but it's always got something in every issue that just makes me think, "What the fuck are you doing?"
I want to draw your attention because the thing we're not talked about it yet. I'm sure you'll talk about it in a moment, but the thing that you're about to talk about is in the exact same panel position that the inflation childbirth was in.
And the issue before that, the first part of the story, it's the same part of the first page that the sex panel was on.
The shagging,
Yeah. So, at the bottom of the page, we cut to this gangster people trafficker's mum, who, if you recall, is like the biggest gangster involved in the Devil's Railroad.
Big Mum.
Big Mum. I'm sure no one will understand this reference, but there's a character in One Piece called Big Mum. She is one of the most powerful pirates in the setting, and I get big mum energy.
Big mum energy.
Big mum energy from this character.
She's not a good mum.
She's not a good mum. She's got children. They're also gangsters. Anyway, what this character is looking at, I should probably...
Big Mum is plugged into machinery and she's looking at screens.
She's called Mother White or something?
Something like that.
I was like to know he was Joey White, because the dead guy's Joey White, so she'll be something White. Is it Sister White?
Mother White? Something like that.
Anyway.
Big Mum.
She is in a technology chair with lots of pipes going into it, looking at some screens. And the screens are of actual photographs of politicians.
Yes. So actual politicians from now.
Yeah, so there's so much to unpack here. Because the politicians that she's got here, do you recognise who the guy, the main one is? The biggest picture.
The biggest picture is the hardest one to see.
Actually.
Is it Grant Shapps? Like,
I don't know, because
sometimes I just always suspect everything to be Grant Shapps now. And maybe I'm just projecting my own...
I legitimately don't recognise this man.
Mm-hmm.
Which is odd, because he's the biggest one, and like I'm probably showing my ignorance here, and he'll be like the current Home Secretary or something.
Well, I mean, it's very hard to keep track of who the current ministers are in Britain.
Arranged around this man are Tony Blair.
Yep.
Theresa May.
Yep.
Oh God, what's he called? Muammar Gaddafi.
That's definitely Gaddafi.
Colonel Gaddafi, and Nigel Farage, and
just images, like photographs.
Yeah, not caricatures. They're just like it's the only
photos.
thing in this comic that isn't illustrated. It's just photos put into it.
I love a bit of mixed media. Do when mixed media turns up and stuff, fucking love it. So when I saw this was a little treat. The actual content of it, unclear.
Well, the thing is, like, Sister White, her name is Sister White. What Sister White is saying, because she's on a video call with these people.
Yes.
Which also, like, we know that this is Earth year 3000 something whatever.
I was going to bring that up.
So, like, that is another, like, aspect of what are we doing here. But, so, what she's saying is, because on this phone call, she's saying, there's difficulty bringing the migrants in. What am I paying you politicians for, if not to allow my migrants in?
Yeah.
So
these politicians are in the pocket of Big Mum.
We are to believe that Theresa May is on the take from people traffickers.
Yes.
To allow refugees in to Britain.
We should state that this is fictional, Theresa May.
It is.
We might have to add in a box later defending ourselves legally against this, but in this comic, there are pictures of real politicians who are being accused of being on the take and allowing migrants in from a space planet.
I mean, if I were to pick a politician who is least likely to be on the take for allowing migrants into the country, I might say Theresa May. And if I forgot that I was talking about politicians that would need to be in power to allow that, I might say Nigel Farage.
Nigel Farage. Also,
and what is Colonel Gaddafi doing
Is
there?
Colonel Gaddafi alive?
No, Colonel Gaddafi's very dead now.
Right, yeah. It's a very odd one, and maybe it's a disconnect between writing and artists, and it was get some Tories or whatever on the board. So
but also Tony Blair.
Tony Blair, I mean, get some Tories on the board.
There was definitely a bunch of anti-refugee sentiment during the Blair years as well. That's the only one which I think maybe I sort of see where they're coming from. But
I think the most disturbing concept in this entire comic and any 2000 AD I've ever read is the idea that Nigel Farage will be alive in the space year 3000 and whatever. The middle one, right? Please write in, listeners, and let us know who that is, because I'm drawing a blank on it. I'm looking at it upside down currently, and it kind of looks like internet personality Ashen's. Just his hair and the way his beard's arranged. It can't possibly be, and it definitely isn't, but other than that, it could just be some it's the biggest one, so we're meant to get it. It's the one that we're meant to know.
Is this a comment on not the comic? Is us not recognizing this person our comment on how poor the branding for the current government is? That it's not Priti Patel or
it's not Rishi Sunak. It's not the current Prime Minister. Although when this was made, who was the current Prime Minister is a big question.
That's a good point. Yeah. So therefore, we don't recognise it because it's not one of three people.
Yeah. I think it might be a disconnect because it's a good point because these people are on the take from people traffickers.
Yeah.
I don't think the comic is the writers are saying that. I don't think that's what he's saying is happening now.
This is my point. I'm not sure what they're trying to say, and I feel like there might be some very weird conspiracy theorist stuff going into this.
I'm going to be generous and say that I don't think the writer or artist is actually saying that these people are on the take allowing migrants into Britain currently. Because this is a very pro-migrant story.
It should be, but I'm less confident saying that now.
Okay.
Because there's another thing about this where, this people trafficker is going on about how valuable the migrants are to them.
Yeah.
Which, that's not the story. That's not reality. In reality, it's you paid your money to get on the Devil's Railroad. Now I don't care if you live or die.
True.
So there's just it's very confused.
There is a disconnect between the commentary because I think it's probably just like, I'm going to have her have some Tories, because Tories are corrupt.
Yeah.
Allegedly. I don't know if I have to say allegedly for that.
I should say allegedly.
I personally think that Tories are a corrupt ideology. But, like, I think the writer has got some like he's put in the script, get some Tory pictures and put them up, and that'll be like a funny, like, sort of sight gag, like a little Easter egg for, like, oh, look, there's literally Nigel Farage in this fucking comic. But I'm going, like, unless anything else comes up, unless there's other instances, I think it's maybe just a disconnect, and not necessarily they're saying this is what's happening. I don't think this is the political stance of the writer and artist necessarily.
I just literally don't know what to take from it. Because every single issue of this, there's been something like this where I've just been like, what? What are you saying? What is going on?
I think it's angling for, like, a comedy 90s toucan thing. Like, you know, Hooligan's Haircut, or like, you know the Gorillas guy, Tank Girl. It's like sort of anarchy, and like it's more art, and it's not necessarily a strong story. It's like specifically, it's like an artist driven thing. I think it's going for more that and more comedy than, like, specific heart, because it's just funny that they're there.
Similarly, I've been listening back to the recordings, and every time we talk about Devil's Railroad, you say a lot about how it's a comedy. I don't think it's funny.
I think it's positioning as a comedy, but might not actually be succeeding.
I'm not even sure that it's trying to be funny.
The art is definitely... I think it's the art, right? I think the art lends more to comedy. It's more of a comedic-looking art style. And, like, having Tories that are actual pictures of Tories is a funny thing.
And Tony Blair.
And Tony Blair.
Your point may be that Tony Blair actually is a Tory.
Well, famously what Margaret Thatcher said about Tony Blair.
Yeah. But why is Colonel Gaddafi there? I just don't understand, Craig. It's
a
baffling.
Panel. It's one panel. It's one panel that we get to talk about for, like, 20 minutes. It's great.
We should probably cover more things that happen in this comic, because more things do happen in this comic.
What was her name?
Sister White.
Sister White looks like that X-Men villain. She's given... You know that X-Men villain who is, like... He's like a TV host kind of thing. He's like a big sort of...
Arcade?
No, he's like a sort of... He's a space guy, space alien. I want to say MODOK, but it's definitely not MODOK. But it's got an M sort of name. He captures the X-Men, he puts them on a sort of battle world type scenario for, like, intergalactic TV.
That sounds like Arcade.
He's green, and he's like a big guy. Like, he's sort of comedically fat, and he's sort of like a slobbish, nerdish sort of parody. And you know the guy who was in the cartoon? Like, there was a cartoon episode. It's, you know, Longshot. You know, the mullet guy, the mullet X-Men guy. He's called Longshot. He's got a mullet. He's got, like, good throwing powers or good, like, target powers.
I would imagine that, yeah, he's probably, like, extremely accurate because he's called Longshot.
He's called Longshot. And he's involved... It's something like MODOK, but not MODOK. More, it's an M word. I should have looked up before I did this thing.
I'm absolutely certain that editor Calum will be screaming the name
I
of
know,
the character
right? I know.
while editing this.
But, like, she gives me that big energy because she's, like, a bigger character, and she's, like, plugged into the chair, and she's comedically evil. And, like, she's watching Tories, I guess. But, like...
Well, she's comedically evil because she's talking about how upset she is that her bastard rapist son has died, and her other son is there being like, you know, I'll avenge his death, and that she's like, oh well, who cares about you? You know, my precious baby is dead.
My named son is dead.
And then a Slug Man comes over to
wait on her, or like...
I think give her something to drink, and she just shoots the Slug Man in the face.
It's a good panel. Like, I like the art of the Slug Man.
And she's like, stop intruding on my grief!
That was a great line, right? Did you like that? Because
I did like that.
Yeah. Like, I feel like if that's her character, that'll get old pretty fast. But, like, that one panel of her saying that was genuinely really funny.
She's also wearing a slug hat.
Yeah, that's why I think she looks like that X-Men character that I can't remember the name of, because I think he's got tendrils. I think he's got, like, neck tendrils and things. I really like the art.
Is it Nimrod?
No, Nimrod is it called? No,
I think he might have something to do with the big robots. What they're called, Sentinels.
No, it's like an intergalactic thing. It's like a comedy space thing. Like, and he steals mutants to put them in like an intergalactic TV show thing, and it's a TV parody. And like he's like a slimy like executive type.
We need to stop talking about other comics.
I know, but like that, I feel like this is what they're referencing with this character because she's plugged into stuff. She's got tendrils. She's all in green. She might not actually be green skinned, but the lighting makes her look green.
After Sister White shoots the Slug Man, she has another line where it's like he'd been with us since he was a boy, and like she has been taught, and like he was my late husband's favorite. Now that sounds like she's probably talking about her son. But like because she's just shot the Slug Man,
I thought I took that to be the Slug Man. Like it was comedic evil. Like he's been like a servant for them for generations.
It's ambiguous at best.
I think she was talking about the Slug Man that she just casually boltered in the face.
If she's talking about her son, then why is she saying that he's been with us since he was a boy?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the Slug Man, and she's she's a comedy. Like this is the comedy. It's the sort of grim, dark comedy where you're getting a gag out of killing this lovely looking Slug Man.
Anyway, so then the other son says he'll go and get revenge, and we cut back to Calum and Constance and the rest of the refugees in a warp driver, which is just a different kind of spaceship.
They've got a different spaceship now.
They're similar. I don't know why they couldn't have just taken the last spaceship this whole distance.
Yeah, well, presumably...
Or if this is a faster spaceship, why they couldn't have just taken the faster spaceship.
Presumably they had to get to the place where the faster spaceship was. It's like a whole... They've taken the bus to get on a train, you know? Like...
But it seems a bit like they've taken the bus to get a bus.
Yeah. But like they need to, it has to be hurdles on their journey, and it has to be progression, and I don't mind it so much.
I guess. Constance isn't happy with Palamon for killing that guy, and he's like, well, he was being really creepy to that one woman, and she's like, yeah, but she's a psychic and could have dealt with it, and he's like, I had no reason to know that
she was a psychic.
And I'm kind of with Palamon on this one, to be honest.
Yeah, I like the outcome of this conversation because it's like, is that right? He's saying like, how was I to know? And she was like, all right, fine, but like, if you do anything to endanger this child again, I'm gonna fuck you up.
Yeah, well, does she say I'm gonna fuck you up? She's definitely like, I will never forgive you.
It's that last panel where like she's looking into the camera and she's got the angry eyes, and she's like, I take it from, it's a better sort of outcome from this scenario than I was expecting, where I assumed he would just sort of blag his way out of it, and she would just accept it. But like, she's very like serious, like, no, the child needs to be born on Earth and needs to be born. Like, I'm not going to fucking die.
Yeah, fighting these gangsters.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into a whole comic about fighting gangsters. We're supposed to be doing a comic about getting to Earth.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing I was going to say, because I meant to say this about the gangster, and you mentioned One Piece and Big Mom.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about anime in general and sort of manga. The gangster son just died.
Yeah.
And I was like...
He got stabbed in the face by an electro whip.
Stabbed in the face from behind or whatever. And like, my thoughts were, he just couldn't have been that big a deal if he just died from some guy stabbing him in the back. I know it's not necessarily like a power level comic or whatever, but like, it's like, oh, you were just some guy. Like, because like, it's a surprise that he's the favourite.
Yes, that's where I'll agree with you, because I don't think this is necessarily the type of comic where, like, the higher rank of gangster you are, the tougher you'll be.
Yeah, I know, right? It's not Yakuza.
Yeah.
But, like,
but I do think that it is weird that he's getting his hands dirty.
Yeah, like, he's like, the favourite son of this big deal gangster, but he's on some shit transport. Like,
he is personally driving the refugees from one place to another.
And he might get his kicks by doing that, whoever, but like, what? Like, like that's all he does? Like, he's
they must not have
a
very big organisation.
It definitely gives that sense.
Yeah. But they have enough of an organisation that they have at least one other guy working for them, because the son that vowed revenge is with a pilot in another ship, and he's like, oh, I'll go and get that warp driver, and that's the refugees that were with my brother when he got killed.
Definitely.
And the pilot's like, well, that's a warp driver, it's faster than us, we can't catch it. And then the brother's like, shoot a torpedo at them. And apparently torpedoes are fast enough to get warp drivers.
Well, they're smaller, and therefore faster, right? That's how space works.
No.
And, well, they're going at a speed, and then shooting a rocket from that speed would obviously be faster.
I just feel like something called a warp driver is probably so fast that it wouldn't be,
faster than light, maybe.
And then the torpedo crashes into the warp driver, and it explodes, and presumably all of the characters are dead.
All of that is what I took from the last page, because it is very much the spaceship properly exploding. Yeah. There's a next time on box.
There is a next time on, crash and burn, and the other gangster son and the pilot are like, oh no, it must have hit like the fuel tanks and it did more damage than I thought. And your mother's not going to be happy because we've lost a warp driver and all of those valuable refugees.
Yeah.
Which again is like what do you think people trafficking's about?
Do you think that they're going to get paid when they get
there?
Have they mentioned that?
They specifically mentioned that they did it the other way, but they paid, and like that's why they're being mistreated on the first spaceship, where they had to deal with a gas leak.
It's like a thing where like, I'm trying to like no prize this, but like if the refugees don't get there, because like in the logic of this comic, we have to accept that they're valuable. They go to Earth, and the Earth Tory politicians want them there. And if they don't arrive, maybe the politicians will kick off, because they're only being paid by... They're not like Big Mum's agents.
I don't get that impression from this at all.
I'm trying to save it. I'm trying to save it from like its own logic.
I just don't think it makes any sense.
Well, that's why like I'm like, see, when things don't make necessarily like full logical sense, I'm like, it's fine because it's like a comedy thing, and like we got to see a picture of Nigel Farage, like, but like you are right.
I didn't think it was good that we saw that picture.
No, I was kind of like, oh,
that made me like my brain go into space. Like,
I didn't expect to see Nigel Farage, but I do think you should probably see Nigel Farage a lot more in 2000 AD. I feel like there should be more searing political commentary in 2CAD.
There should be. I don't know if I necessarily want that to be by showing specifically Nigel Farage, because I think he gets shown enough and has been shown more than enough.
That's true, but like
for quite a long time.
He wouldn't be showing in any kind of good light in 2CAD is the thing. But yeah, it definitely seems like all of the characters we've just been following are very dead.
Presumably they just won't be. Presumably this will have been another dream.
No, Michael, I can't possibly... No. He dreamt about Big Mum's son
shooting them with a torpedo.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happened last time.
Well, be prepared for me to defend it as character-building anxiety work. Like, oh, you know, he's just so anxious about being blown out of hyperspace by a low-ranking gangster. And
I'll lose that 20p bet. See if this is another dream. I'll take 20p off you.
Right. No, I can't start betting. I can't. I can bet on the first thing. This could be a dream, right?
Yeah.
And I only say that because they've established that they'll do that. And, like, see, once you've established that you'll do your cliffhanger as a dream, no reason not to do that many more times later and call it a running gag.
You know, I think you might be right about that, which is another reason why you shouldn't do them at all.
Yep. Once is fine, but, like, the threat of them now exists forever. I mean, like, this panel of the ship, they are very dead. Like,
it looks that way.
They might be teleported or in an escape pod, or
maybe it'll be a different warp driver.
That would be very funny. Yeah. I could see that being the case.
But
he is a shit gangster.
Yeah. Anything else you got to say about it?
I liked it, and I might rank it quite high.
Fuck's sake.
I love a bit of fascism. I really like Nigel Farage. What a character!
Next, we have Fall of Deadworld Retribution Part 3. Script by Keck W, art by Dave Kendall, letters by Simon Boland. And the very first thing that I've got to say about this is that I have been misgendering people again.
Oh, it's much... Right. You shouldn't misgender people.
Well, I didn't do it intentionally.
No, but like I'm just saying in general.
All through this story where this character's been in it, I've been saying that Judge Eastwood is a he, and that Judge Lee was his wife. Might have still been a wife, for all I know. Can't remember. But apparently it's Eva Eastwood, and she is a woman. Much like the orc from Feral and Foe, didn't get that.
Do you remember the orc?
Notice.
Well, I guess we'll talk about it later, but I remembered something about the orc.
So did I.
So, you shouldn't misgender people, just in general. But, you know, these are fictional people, and also the art is not necessarily very clear a lot of the time, and that's part of what the art's going for. It's an oil painting, it's very grim, and like there's a lot of fog.
Everybody in Fall of Deadworld is very skinny.
Very skinny.
And has the same body type.
Same body type. And like it's very hard to tell characters apart, even when they're clearly different genders and clearly different characters. It's like, and you still got the problem of like, that's a very localized effect in this comic, but also it's a problem with telling judges apart in general in 2000.
Because they're all wearing the same uniform, and normally in Judge Dredd, you can easily tell who is a man and who's a woman, even under judges, because the men are chunky and the women are curvy.
Yeah.
Because like all of the women, basically, that have big bums, and like that's potentially its own problem. But a different kind of problem is when they all have the same body type of just being rake thin.
Yeah.
Because then their faces is obscured. Everybody refers to each other by their last name.
Yes. I think that you could even say maybe this art is going for a bit of androgyny.
Yeah.
And to my credit, right, to your credit, you're not intentionally misgendering people. I was finding it hard to tell, like, sovs and normal judges apart in this specific art.
That was yes, I also had that same problem.
I was keeping it together, but then there was a page, and then after that I was like, I am unclear who anybody is.
Because both the Mega City judges and the Sov City judges have got Deadworld-ified versions of the uniforms, so their uniforms are both more similar to each other than they are in the main Judge Dredd continuity, and they're quite similar in the main Judge Dredd continuity.
They are. We are many layers deep into this niche thing.
Yeah.
They've got like a hammer and sickle, though. Like, one of them does, at least.
Yeah. Well, shall we talk about what happens? So we're still with Judge Eastwood and their crew, not Judge Fairfax and their crew.
I was worried that this was going to be another set of people, and it kind of is.
It kind of is.
It kind of is. It's like a third line of folk.
What happened at the end of the last issue was a Soviet or Sov City roller, steamroller, war roller.
They're definitely a thing from like the Apocalypse War.
Yeah.
Are we to take that, because I'm not up on Deadworld, are we to take that everything's happening at once? Like the Sov invasion is happening when like the Dark Judges are taking over? Because these people are just in Mega City 1, right?
Are they in Mega City 1 or are they in East Meg?
Unclear. Very unclear.
Nothing's really been established.
No.
Because it seems that you've read all of the other comics that came out, like, over a period of years.
Yeah.
God knows how long ago. Anyway, so Judge Eastwood's crew got attacked by a Sov war ruler. But also, there's these Sovs that are behind that. And apparently the war rulers have been going rogue.
Yeah.
And
malware.
One of the Sov judges had, like, there's a whole bit where it's talking about, like, oh, she was well educated by the Soviet forward-thinking education system, so she like learned how tractors work.
She learned about tractors and how the tractors were like coded in the same way that this Sov war roller, which is a big death wheel, listeners. It's a big dumb death wheel. It's
just a cylinder.
Yeah, and it's rolling towards
it's just a giant cylinder that crushes buildings. The
nominal protagonists of this story, the Sovs. I don't know if it's also like coming towards the Sovs, is what they're saying, because like
I think it's gone rogue. So it's like they were activated by people that have been affected by the dead fluids. Yeah. Zombie men. And like they're shutting it down because it's a threat to everybody.
But, like, is there, like, a war happening? Like, where are we? Like, are we in Mega City 1 and the Sov invasion is happening because that's why they're there? Or are we in East Meg and, like...
Is the Sov invasion happening because, like, they've already fallen to the Deadites?
It should be covered in the blurb, and I feel like it's not covered in the blurb.
Anyway, so, the war ruler stops. Eastwood and co are saved. The Soviet judges turn up. And like... I think that...
What is going on in these panels? It's like... They stopped the war roller, right?
Yeah.
There's a panel of the...
I think then Eastwood is the one who, like, raises the hammer and sickle, because, again, everybody's fighting with the same weapons here, because someone's invading someone, and they've taken the weapons off of each other.
This looks like a Sov judge that has the hammer and sickle, and like, it looks like... Is this Eastwood here?
I think that's Eastwood.
So, but, like, this is Assitant. And if you look...
Oh, you're saying this is a different character than this?
Yeah, like this, because they speak to them. Look, see, she's got the hammer and sickle there, and she speaks... So is that Eastwood there?
I thought that there was, like, a continuity problem here, because I thought Eastwood was holding the hammer-sickle double weapon thing, and then, like, turned around with a gun in her hand.
No, I think it's... I think the hero group comes on to the Sov group. They come across them.
You're right, because they've got different shoulders.
Different shoulders, but also, like, it's a very weird sort of turn of events, because the Sovs are like, oh, let's do Sov things, and then I think Eastwood
just shoots at them.
Just shoots at them, kills 5 of them, like a group of them that aren't the other, isn't the main Sov, and then is like, let's talk. And then
the Soviet then turns around and says, I request permission to parley.
Yeah, but it's like, why are you speaking when like your pals have just been murdered by your enemy?
Yeah, and then Eastwood is like, request denied, and punches her.
Yeah.
And doesn't shoot her.
No. Well, she punches... Doesn't she punch her? Like, puts like a thing through it, like stabs her in the eye.
Yes, you're right. Throws a knife. And then she's like, it's fine, but I have an Orlock implant. Do you know what an Orlock implant is?
No, it's said in bold, so we're meant to know what it is. I really liked that scene, though, because, first of all, good boot knife action, potentially. We don't see the knife coming out of the boot.
Because the artwork is so detailed, and like that's not a negative, because it does look good in like individual instances, but because it's so detailed, it becomes quite hard to read action in it.
Yeah.
So, like, I couldn't really tell that a knife had been thrown there until you pointed it out again. I did read that the first time. I didn't know that she had a knife in her.
It was a weird series of events, because potentially Eastwood, but like we're saying about how they're indistinguishable judges, you can't see a badge that says Eastwood or whatever, but like has main character energy, this could be one of the characters from part 1 of this fucking run.
Oh, you think that could be Fairfax?
Yeah.
I don't think it is.
It could be Fairfax. Like, the worry here is it could be Fairfax, right?
That in that particular panel you're pointing at, it's definitely Eastwood, because that's one where it says, I'm Senior Judge Ada Eastwood.
Right. But you see my problem with it. Like, it's hard to tell judges apart at the best of times. Also, when there's this layer of grime over everything, it's like, well, that looks cool, but I'm having trouble parsing it.
Yeah.
And then the fight is great, because, like, Judge Eastwood has stabbed a knife through this Sov's eye for some reason. They're a Sov, I guess. The Sov's fine because I've got a gimmick.
Yeah.
And then there's just a panel of Eastwood headbutting the knife further through the skull of the Sov.
You can see the edge of the knife coming out of the back of her head.
And that seems to have done it. Like, whatever this Orlok implant is, doesn't matter.
But also, like, she just saved Eastwood and Co. because she's the one that knew about tractors.
I don't know if they knew that. Like, I don't know if they overheard her in her dialogue about tractors. They sort of take these Sovs hostage.
Yeah, they have a fight. It's not especially interesting.
It's a great panel. Like, it's a good gimmick of like, oh, I stabbed you, but it wasn't enough, so I'm going to stab you with my head, and that's going to do it.
And then the Sov judges are prisoner. They've got their hands on their head. They're kneeling down, and they're like, "We're going to take you and have you Sov judges rush at the enemy so that you'll be killed before we are."
Yeah,
and that's.
I think it's just meant to be like a grim sort of. It's like it's already Toucan. It's already grimdark, but this is very grimdark. This is apocalyptic stuff, and like it's showing that they're all evil and they're all bad people. The Sovs might have been all right. Don't know if they've done any nukes. Unclear what's going on.
Yeah.
I thought it was just the Dark Judges that were doing dark Judges things in the distance.
Well, have you noticed, Craig, that, like, no Dark Judges or even, like, Dead Fluid people have been in this story at all yet, apart from those mindless robot things?
Deadheads? Well, like, they mentioned that, like, the problem... They downplay the problem towards one of the end of the panels, because they're like, oh... The sector house got addicted to dead fluids, and now that's a problem.
Some new drug.
Yeah, it's like, mate, like, look at the landscapes that you're in.
Yeah, it's like all ruins.
It's not like, oh, like the cops have gone bad. This isn't like a necropolic, like an undead end of the world type scenario. And also there might be a Sov invasion. It's unclear.
Yeah, it must be Megacity 1 because it's the Megacity judges that are telling the Soviet judges about how they are now going to lead a raid on the zombie cops who are their organization.
But that's like it's like
so there must be a Sov invasion as well.
Sov invasions, that might have been like a big thing. There might have been like an arc of the story where it was like it can't get possibly worse, and then there was a Sov invasion as well.
I have a feeling that I read the comic where that happened, and it was like 2 strips.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was a big thing.
I wouldn't be as like animated about this if it was more clear. And like, I'm not asking for you to do like a big flashback everything, but like, this is still introducing new readers. Like, this is like 3 or 4 of like the story where you're jumping back on. Like, you're meant like we've read other comics and we have context and we have media literacy for this. The poor fucker who's just picked up Toucan for the first time and read the first Deadworld 2-3 weeks ago. Yeah. What are you meant to take from this?
Has any information been given as to what this story is?
Well, to me, right?
Because I don't think that there has been. I don't think there's been any, here's what Fall of Deadworld is. I don't think that even Tharg and the
it has to be the blurb at the start. It must be like an alternate, like...
Oh, I suppose, because I don't read the blurb.
The blurb will say that, but it won't contain all the stuff you need to know. And, like, from these last panels, it seems like some cops are on drugs, and that's the problem.
That's what they think the problem is.
Yeah, and, like... Maybe that's like a commentary on how, like, you know, single-minded or, like, you know, focusing on the big picture they are. But, like, from having read other issues and knowing that the Dark Judges are about being eldritch horror men, it doesn't seem like that's the problem. Like, very odd. Very odd.
Did you like this, Craig?
I like that panel where Clint Eastwood, or whatever he's called, or Ava Eastwood, bangs that knife through the Sov's head. I thought that was great violence.
Other than that?
I like the art. I'm struggling. I don't want to say I hated it, but like I'll be ranking it like low.
Yeah, so will I.
I wish it was better. Like I don't want to be so negative on it, but like it's give me some context, give me some like because there's like
give me any reason to care. Like because this is better than the first one with Fairfax because I have no reason to care about any of those people.
Yeah,
and they all seem horrible. These people also seem horrible. The second story, I gave it a 1 point increase on the rankings because there was the payoff to a story that I remember being set up, and I thought it actually did a more or less competent job of that. Like, there's a reason to care.
Stuff happens in this.
This is lower than that one. This isn't as good as the second part of the story.
Yeah,
but it is better than the first part of the story.
Our dream of the rankings is shattered before us.
Yeah. But like it's just okay. Here's a group of people. I can't really tell who's who. I realized that I could tell who's who before, even worse than I thought I could. And it's just I don't know what's going on. I don't know why I should care. That's always my problem with Deadworld.
I want to care. I think the idea of like here's like a long form like actual origin story for the Dark Judges and their world. I think
that's not what this is, though, is it? That's not what this is. Like I spent like the entire time of my first time reading any Deadworld thing being like, oh, is Fairfax Judge Death? And I don't think he is. I think there's a guy called Judge Death or something, who is presumably going to be Judge Death. But like, I don't know why any of this matters.
Well, it's a long form. It's like a big like here's the world. Like here's like we can do this for years because there's so many characters.
Oh, they certainly are thinking that. Yeah.
But I just like I think I want the moment to moment to be better, and I'd also like to. It's such a low bar. I want to care about the characters.
Yeah.
But they have that problem. Like I think that is a genuine problem for 2CAD, where like your baseline characters are fascists, and I don't want to bang the fascists from every strip. But like
when it kind of.
I do. I don't want to do it, but like I do. But like, you care about Judge Dredd because he's Judge Dredd.
Yeah.
But like, see when it's some other fucking judge who like is just doing these horrible like those solves would have been on site had they just. There's no reason for.
Yeah, like it looked like the one that Eastwood like murdered was going to come up and be like, oh, I'm here to like tie in with you actually because even though we're enemies, like we've got a common goal or something.
Like, they're like we're solves and like there's a solve invasion on the go. But we've noticed. That there's these 4 eldritch horror men, and if you look around, it's the literal apocalypse.
I also think that like the entire world is going through something similar.
Yeah,
if I recall.
Yeah, like there's definitely been other like I've seen some Hongo City stuff recently in the last year or so. But like, why did Eastwood kill those just unnamed solves? And then it's unclear why she killed the named one or the one who knew about tractors. If we should move on.
She's even got a little T on her armour, which I'm going to assume stands for tractor.
Yeah, she's the tractor enthusiast, the local...
It's definitely... I know, listeners, it's a hammer, it's surrounded by sickles, but no, she's Tractor Woman. She's Judge Tractor.
Justice for Tractor Woman. My head's getting filled with so much misgender people.
Final strip in the comic is Feral and Foe, Bad Godesberg, said it the first time this time. Part 4, script by Dan Abnett, art by Richard Elson, and letters by Jim Campbell. So we are back to the scene of Wraithchild and Tusk being bored to death by the Owlbore.
Loved it.
And I read all of the things where the Owlbore was talking through his facts. There's a lot of stuff about cheese in here. It's just very funny. Wraithchild is saying like, oh, I've got such a headache, I'm so tired, I'm just going to have a wee sleep. And Tusk is saying like, oh, what did you say? Oh, I can't get over this migraine. And then Wraithchild thrashes about with a sword and says, shut up! And in doing so kills the Owlbore.
I have to... This is a lot to unpack.
It's one page, the thing that they had to... The thing on the cover this time, the thing that was the next time on last time.
The big promising thing from the last issue.
It's the first page.
It's a little disappointing that the Owlbore was dealt with.
What did you think of the explanation for why she was able to overcome it?
Because she had listened to Bode prattle on so much.
That she had instinctively started lashing out at being bored by long diatribes of facts.
I am glad that you say that with a smile in your voice, because I liked it.
I liked it too.
I was worried that you wouldn't like it because it was a joke. Like, it was a joke. Like, it was, like, basically a joke way of getting out of the thing.
I think you need to have a way of getting out of the thing.
Yeah.
I think it could have been better. Like, I think that if in this particular set of strips we had seen exactly that happen, and, like, she'd done, like, shut up! And just, like, punched at him or something, that would make this land better for me. But I do like the idea of it.
I really like how the Owlbore just fucking explodes. It's like he's a balloon with blood in him. Like it's not like a bit gets lopped off him. It's just getting slashed across all of its like mass.
I think
And
mostly just like its wingspan, because like when you see when it's dead here, there's like a big slash across
yeah,
its
like
chest.
on the other panel, you can see where the slash is, but like the panel of it dying is just a massive explosion of blood from the Owlbore, and I liked that. If it was going to die in one panel,
I think you might be misreading that slightly, because I think it's a splash of blood surrounded by feathers.
well, like there's feathers, but like, you see the red goes all the way like to the edge of the like the blood is almost all of the bird, and like like that isn't what's happening. It is just a slash across the chest, but like the energy conveyed is like this thing fucking explodes when it dies. Sad that it's dead though. Like I could have done with a whole issue of them dealing with the Owlbore. I kind of feel like that's what was being set up.
It's a bit of an anticlimax, but I don't think it needed to be any more than this. Really, it is a D&D encounter.
It's an encounter, and we'll talk more about encounters because that's
certainly will.
Kind of what happens. And like if each issue of this comic is going to be an encounter, very happy with that.
An encounter or two.
Yeah.
So after this, they pick themselves up and explain what that was about and how she was able to fight back. And they're like, "Well, we should probably, go talk to the boss, see what's going on." And they go back to Witchfinder Danica,
Jenny Joyce,
and they're talking about like what's happening and like, "Oh, the place is overrun." And have you found the head wizard yet?
And she's like, "Well, actually,
no, because you see, Mrs. Offblack said that I couldn't see him,
and she was very convincing.
And Tusk does a bit of like makes a speech check, makes a persuade check, where like he's like, "Oh well, of course, you being such a fine, upstanding member of the like
not constabulary, but like like the establishment.
You would never take that lying down, would you?
You'd never take that lying down." And like she has the whole thing where like, "Oh, are you speaking up to me?" It's like wretches or whatever they're called. Foes.
You wouldn't let a mere housekeeper stand in your way, is what he's saying.
There's a great like I like it because they talk her around and she's like, no, I wouldn't. And then she like looks up at the housekeeper who like this panel's I want this on the wall. Like she's standing like on like a door that's in the middle of a tower.
Yeah, just menacingly glowering down at them.
And like the Jenny Joyce is like, but she's just so menacing. Like
she's so fierce and loyal.
Yeah.
And saying like, "Oh, we'll need to find a way to get up those stairs." And then Wraithchild is saying, "No, and then she names what her fancy race is. Mm-hmm. They're called Longavi.
Dark Elves.
Longavi.
He keeps making like it's like he keeps doing equivalents.
Yeah.
And it's like, why? We know you're a dark elf. Like this, Camden.
I think I'm maybe less elfy than the orc people are orky.
I come from Warhammer. Mm-hmm. I have a Warhammer background. And at some point they decided we need to rename all of the fantasy races to copyrightable things. And that's not what's happening here, but it reminds me of that.
Yeah.
And it gets my blood directly up. They're not orcs, they're orcs. Like, and anytime I hear like someone say like, "Oh, I'm like whatever the elf name is you just said," don't register it. It's like, no, I'm not engaging with that. I'm not entertaining that idea. They're just dark elves.
But she says, like, I won't need to go up the stairs past Mrs. Offblack. I can just jump it, basically.
Mrs. Offblack is, like, I need to, like... She's staring down at them, right? I thought she went in. Like, I didn't realise she was, like, standing directly looking at them and stopped. Like, she's...
Like a bouncer at the pub.
Yeah, like, she's literally a bouncer. It's amazing. I laughed so hard at this past. When I turned the page and saw the panel of her, like, standing on a tower. Like, I don't think her arms are crossed, but that's the energy that she gives.
No, actually, I think she might have her hand on her hip, which is like the same thing, but sassier.
Yeah, it's very sassy.
That's the end of that scene. We now cut back to Bode and the orc that I misgendered. I have been misgendering people.
Intentionally misgendering people.
Who they name in this comic, and apparently her name is Barbary
Anne. I think they named her, that was the first time, like, when they met her, Barbary Anne.
Because she's a barbarian, and her name is Anne, and somehow I didn't put together that meant that her name was Anne.
Is it wrong? Like, Anne or Barb?
And
you could call her Barb.
You could, and therefore she's female.
Yeah.
But there we are. I apologise both to A.V. Eastwood and Barbary Anne. I did not mean to imply that you were male.
One's a bad judge, and one's a pretty cool orc character that I really like.
Yep. So they have finished fighting the Koboldkin, and...
Bode's sort of freaking out. He's tweaking. He's like, "Can we fucking leave now?"
Well, they're like, "Can we fucking leave now?" And then the one who is a member of the Wraithfinders is like, well, no, we've got to go and make a full report, so we need to find what's beyond this point.
Bode has a whole thing about how, like, oh, there's probably, like, a natural predator down there that's worse than the Koboldkin that's, like, pushing them to the surface.
There you go, that's a report. Something worse than Koboldkin is down this way. That's all we need to say, come on. But they're not having that, so they continue on, and then we get the last page, the glorious last page.
It's a tradition.
Yeah, absolutely, of Feral and Foe, where presumably what the Koboldkin were running for is revealed to be a jellied isohedron.
Yes.
I have a deep and abiding love of the silly monsters in D&D, and apparently Dan Abnett does too.
Yeah.
Because the silly monsters are in D&D. You would also have seen them in that film. Owlbears, inherently just weird. What was this idea? Why have you made a bear that is also an owl?
Iconic, though. Iconic.
And, gelatinous cubes.
Mm-hmm. I love gelatinous cubes. They're great.
Yeah, they're exactly what the name implies. They're a cube of jelly, and they're hard to see because they're jelly, so you can just walk into one.
Yeah.
And if you do, you get dissolved because it's acidic. This is the same thing, but it's had the serial numbers filed off. So instead of being a gelatinous cube, it's a jellied isohedron. And just why not add in another light gag into there? Because the shape that is, because it's not a cube, is a 20-sided dice, like you would use if you were playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Everything you just said, fully agree with. I think there's like an aspect of like maybe they saw that film and liked it, but didn't quite agree with how just immediately lethal the gelatinous cube was. Because I think they get in that film, they get into a cube, but they get out of it.
Yes,
this guy...
There's someone who goes into the cube and burns. In D&D, you don't immediately die if you get gotten by a gelatinous cube.
You take acid damage.
Yeah.
This guy, who's like the human on the team, he's got like a little superhero mask.
He looks like a human, but I'm not going to assume anything about any of his identity.
You cannot. But like
2000 AD for the rest of my life.
It's an amazing page turn of like something bad in the dark, and then they turn the page, last page. He's just like half of his body's in it, and his legs are already gone.
Yeah, if they pull him out this very second, then he's still done.
But like even like worse, like there's like grisly bit of stuff because like the image is grisly.
Yeah,
and then like the reaction, which is like time has passed between this like in like comic language, time has passed between these two panels. Like Bode is like, or one of them's like, he's had it. Like no, like he's even more dissolved by the time like they're speaking. Because, like, look, like his feet are gone completely in the panel that he gets involved in it. Incredibly. I feel like they're like, no, the gelatinous cube is good. Just raise up that acid a little bit more.
If I were to, make any comments about this, I would say that they're actually in a pretty good position to win in this encounter, because gelatinous cubes, they're not that tough, and they do have a wizard this time.
They do have a wizard.
It's very hard to fight a gelatinous cube if you've only got fighters, but wizards can do, like, elemental damage. And
he is powered up as well, because he's got that thing in the back of his head.
He's got that chalice.
Other point though, his sword is dissolving. His metal sword is like the tip of it's gone.
I believe that's what happens with gelatinous cubes as well. I think it's like glass and gold, importantly, because like that's one of the tricks that you do with gelatinous cubes is you put a bunch of gold in there on the bottom, and people are like, oh, what's all this gold doing here? And then they just slop into a gelatinous cube that they didn't see.
Like, I feel like if every end of the comic is like another dumb D&D monster, maybe normal people will get bored, but I will yas even harder each and every time.
It is exactly my type of shit.
Yeah, it's exactly what you want. I'm incredibly pro it. Like, it's the best comic in this. It's the best strip in 2CAD currently.
I would agree. Mm-hmm. And shall we take that as our note to go to the rankings?
Yeah, we should go to the rankings.
I gave mine first before, so you do yours first now.
Oh, are we doing it that way, or are we doing it back and forth away?
That's what we've been doing the whole time, Craig.
So, Feral and Foe, number 1 with a bullet. But then Helium, two. Helium was very good. Then it's difficult, because where do I rate things? Maybe...
That is the whole question.
I don't want to anger you. I'm gonna look at you while I say this.
Okay.
Feral and Foe, Helium.
Yep.
And then Devil's Railroad.
Fuck's sake. Okay.
And then Dredd.
Dredd 4.
Dredd 4, very low. Not much Dredd action. Not like it's a personal preference thing. It's perfectly fine. I feel bad for all the creatives involved because I'm saying your work's shite. It's not. I'm just not digging it as much. And then Deadworld Dead Last.
Deadworld Dead Last. I almost agree with you completely, but I'll change one thing about that, because I do think that Feral and Foe was the best comic. Looked the best, easiest to read, most stuff
It's
that I like
got a
happening in
gelatinous
it.
cube.
Most density of events
Yes,
per page.
yeah. Although Helium, I would say...
Helium was also good. I'll put Helium at 2.
Helium at 2.
Which I think you did as well.
I think it did as well, yeah.
I'll put Dredd at 3 rather than 4.
Oh, Dredd at 3.
Dread at
3, sure.
That's still quite low for Dredd for
It
me.
is, actually, yeah.
Because even though, like, I don't think that... I think you're saying that you might not be interested in the story at all anymore.
Yeah. Well, like, even when I'm not interested in a Dredd story, right, there's still, like, fun, dumb stuff happening, and I'm not finding that in this. Like, because it's out of Mega City 1, you're not getting as much Mega City gimmick as you normally would get in a story that you might not like, but there is still fun background stuff or setting stuff.
Yeah. I am still somewhat interested in this story. I still think it could be good. I didn't think there was really that much in this particular installment. I'll put Devil's Railroad second from last, because I do feel like I've been treating that a wee bit harshly.
I understand your points, though.
Yeah.
It did make you think about Nigel Farage.
Yeah, and I just want Deadworld
They're
to
great.
fuck off. Really?
I had high hopes, because, like, you were climbing up the rankings. It was last, second, last. If it had been third...
They had no chance of being third this time.
No, but I had hopes. I had dreams.
So, that's that. I thought overall it's not as good of a prog as last week's.
No.
I don't think it's as good as a prog as they have been.
No. Do you think that Feral and Foe deserved the cover?
Yes. And the reason why I was saying, like, I have thoughts about that at the start of the episode is because I do think that Feral and Foe should get the cover this time, because I don't think there's a particularly strong argument for anything else getting the cover.
I could have seen them
And
do...
Feral and Foe might as well.
Feral and Foe might as well. And it gets you the Owlbore on the cover. It's his second last appearance. Appears, dies, and in the middle he gets the cover. I could have seen there being a case for there being like a big cover of like a Sov roller coming at someone. I wouldn't have wanted that, but like I could see in terms of art style.
They just did a cover for Deadworld 2 progs ago.
I think Deadworld gets the cover next week as well, but it's a Halloween thing, so unclear.
Sure, I suppose.
I feel like Helium needs a cover because
Helium is the other one where, but then like they spent most of this issue in a meeting room.
it could have had some sloggers.
The rest of it was on a train.
Yeah. I mean, if it could be just an incredibly exciting poster of a meeting.
The other thing which I think still needs to get a cover, even though I'm not rating it very highly, is Devil's Railroad.
I would love to see it get a cover.
I thought that Feral and Foe was a much stronger comic this time than Devil's Railroad was, but I think Devil's Railroad is a strip that they have running in the magazine, and it might as well get a cover at some point.
It needs a cover, because like, what if it goes away? Like, what if this is the only appearance of it? And this as well, related to the cover, not a lying cover. Like, this scene happened.
Yeah.
It's more stylized, it's more rendered, but like, this is a scene from the comic.
That is a scene of Wraithchild being affected by the Owlbore. So,
And you can see the chains, like, it's very much chainmail here, because there's parts in the comic where it might just be hair or whatever, it might be dreadlocks, but like, you can see the individual, like, connectors.
It's definitely like there are chains coming from her head, but because she's got that
Bandana,
headband, like it could just be that she's got a bunch of chains on her head and has it held in place by the headband.
I'm gonna bet that the Dark Elves have chainmail hair.
I think they do have chainmail here, but like they might not.
They might not.
It's still kind of weird.
Yeah.
So yeah,
we just do a wrap
that's
up.
the prog, I guess so. Thank you for listening. We are Progslog. You can follow us on Twitter at Progslog. Apparently, you might need to pay money to do Twitter. now.
Eventually, if you're in New Zealand and you're following us, if you're paying money to follow us on Twitter,
don't do that. Pay us money on Patreon instead.
Yeah, chuck us that $1 instead of the Musk. But if you are, let us know.
We also have Patreon. I think
it's
called Progslog. I think I should really look at that. That's really someone else's thing that they put together.
We are the talent.
Yeah.
We are the talent.
You can find us as a podcast on everywhere where podcasts are found, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and you can also find us as YouTube videos on Progslog, the YouTube channel. And we should probably thank anybody that is listening.
And the people that made art for us as well.
People who made art for us, Jessica Kate Fine Art. Or is it Jess Kate Fine Art?
Jess Kate Fine Art, I believe.
Yeah.
We should know. We
really should. We should be more on our shit than we are. The music for the podcast was presented by the Cultenhove School of Psychic Defense. And
Feels like there should be a third thing that
Yeah.
we're saying, but I don't think there is, unless we're massively forgetting a thing. Thanks to the editor, whoever they may be.
I think it's going to be Calum again this
Okay,
time.
yeah.
He's back on the
He's
grind.
back.
But yes,
Yeah. Join us next week.
join us next week.
Bye. My head's getting filled with so much murdered children. Sacrifice at least 2 children to
This world. Then.
It was such a high bringing an Uzi on to children. They are very dead. Why don't we shoot the poors? I will yas each and every time. I love a bit of intentionally misgendering people.
World. Then.
Misgender people. Murdered children gets my blood directly up. I love a bit of fascism. I really like Nigel Farage. What a character! They're great.
I have been misgendering people.